everybody. Welcome to this International Spotlight for the American students at the University of Glasgow. So I am Jack. I work at the university. I used to formerly be a postgraduate student, like I suppose everybody here is potentially going to be. I'm from Florida, and I've been here for 3 years. These are some of my colleagues and some current students here. I will let them introduce themselves. I'll start just kind of around the screen, at least as it's presented to myself. So Aiden, if you want to go and introduce yourself for me.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Aiden. I'm a current postgraduate master's student. I'm studying theater studies here. As of right now, I just arrived a couple months ago, so still, kind of navigating being new here and everything. But yeah, I am originally from Delaware, and I went to school at Boston College, and then was up in Boston for a few years after that. But yeah, new to Glasgow now.
And Jessica.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Jessica. I am a PhD candidate. So I'm at the very end working on my corrections. I'm originally from Oklahoma, but I've been in Glasgow for 10 years. I originally came as a postgraduate taught student, like some of you guys will be as well. And I've essentially made Glasgow my home. So I'm happy to be here today to answer your questions.
And Maral, after you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maral. I am currently based in Chicago. So I am the U.S. country representative for the University of Glasgow, and I'm here to assist you as well as my team who are based throughout the states. So we have someone in the East Coast, West Coast, and South Central, and myself in the Midwest. So happy to assist you where I can. Thanks.
Perfect. So we today are basically going to go over a lot of different topics that we've come up previously and just kind of have a conversation and share our knowledge, share our perspectives, share some ideas that we've got as well. I know that we're going to be taking some questions from the chat. So if you throw questions in the chat, some of them will be picked up and we can talk about them. But as a good place to start, I figured we would start with why you might want to study at the University of Glasgow. Why would you be choosing Glasgow? If you're looking for programs to study abroad at a postgraduate level, why are you choosing the University of Glasgow? Jessica, do you mind starting and kind of giving your ideas? You've been here the longest. Why did you choose Glasgow initially? Why have you chosen to stay here? Just give your general thoughts on that.
Yeah, of course. So coming from Oklahoma, I did 2 undergrad degrees there in history and French. And then I studied abroad for a semester before I moved here. So in 1 year, I lived in 3 different countries, the US, France, and Scotland. And I chose Glasgow because I am a historian. So I started as an early modernist, and then I converted to a medievalist. So coming from Oklahoma to Europe was much more of a better decision for me because the primary source material in Glasgow has a really large set of material available at the library. So that's what I chose because of their history program.
Very cool. Thank you, Jessica. I didn't know actually that you were a history student. So I did history from undergrad and then did classics here. And I mean, yeah, the whole access to resources and obviously living in a country where things are just older just by the nature of the history in Scotland and the access to, if you want to do European history, obviously you're going to have better access in Scotland than perhaps in the States. Aiden, kind of the opposite perspective. You're going to be the newest of the 3 of us in Glasgow. Why did you choose? Kind of what are your first impressions thus far of Glasgow?
Yeah, it's definitely somewhat similar. I was interested in going to grad school broadly, and was really drawn to the specific program here. Insofar as I wanted to be at a university where that had a sizable institutionalized theater department, but also somewhere that wasn't super specialized or focused. I'm very interested, like the research I want to do is very interdisciplinary, and I was drawn very much to the program here because of the opportunities it kind of affords and already has in the couple months to pursue that kind of work. And then, yeah, I was eager to live somewhere else. I was kind of open to where that would be, but I'd always lived on the East Coast, and I kind of missed out on like the full study abroad college experience because that was like COVID was kind of my college experience for undergrad. So I didn't get to do that as much. So when the stars kind of aligned and I found a program and the timing and opportunity was right, I was happy to try out Glasgow, a place I'd never been before, but that I've really enjoyed so far.
And how is there anything kind of specific about your first couple months here that you've found interesting? A place that you've never been to. I know Maral also visited Glasgow for the first time recently. Do either of you have like, hey, coming from the States, coming from what American cities are like, living in American City perhaps, or studying in American City, how is that different to Glasgow just in general?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So for me, I actually lived in the UK for 20 years before moving back to Chicago about a year ago. And what I will say is that I never actually visited Glasgow when I was in the UK. Unfortunately, I wish I did, because I went to Glasgow last July and I was honestly blown away. It's a very vibrant, young, kind of hip city. It's very manageable. I mean, coming from London or even Chicago, it's very easy to walk around, get to know. I mean, I got to know the place within a week. And I know where my favorite spots are, but I won't spoil it for others. So you can find your own. But it's such a culturally rich city, full of diversity in terms of just the people that live there. They're not all Scottish. They come from all walks of life, from all corners of the world. But then you also have the museums and the festivals and the music. There's always something going on, and just the architecture. I mean, the university itself is breathtaking. I mean, you're walking around in Gothic style architecture, and then you stumble upon a modern physics department or a modern building. So they really do blend the old with the new, and it's just a great vibe. I loved it. I look forward to coming back.
Good. Jessica, Aiden, any thoughts on the general vibe? I mean, the one word that I've always described Glasgow is the grunge. You have to love and appreciate the grunge of the city, and you just get like that's where the art and the heart and the culture of Glasgow and I think of Scotland comes from, is kind of the various different perspectives and cultures and times just kind of smashed together and just like let to run loose.
Yeah. I would say that, but like the motto is people make Glasgow, and I think that's so true. So for me, I was kind of in a different unique situation because my husband also came here for his postgrad taught degree. So we both were looking at universities in Scotland, and we both got accepted at Glasgow. So he did classics, and then I did early modern history, and then we both converted to early medievalist for our PhDs, and we brought our cats with us. But the thing that we found was people are so friendly. When we first got here, we knew no one at all. It was just us. And over the years, we've created our own little community. But as you were talking about, there's so many different languages. You could be walking down the street and there's so many different cultures. And I really love that about Glasgow, because you can be just walking down the street and hearing, and you just feel that vibe, that union, everyone just coming together. But then if you get lost, I've had this happen in the beginning where I looked lost and someone just stopped me and said, do you need help? And that's just really, really great and accommodating, especially because when I lived in France, that never happened. So that's one of the reasons why I love Glasgow.
100%.
Yeah, I definitely second all of that. I found the city very walkable and compact in a way that I've really enjoyed. But also, one of the things that I've been really excited to take advantage of so far is just being able to access the rest of Scotland and the UK especially coming from the US, like there's much more ability to hop on like a bus or a train and get to not only like other cities, but also like much more like rural or like areas up in the Highlands. It's much more infrastructure to do that here, which is really exciting. But yeah, it's been great. Like just you can pop over to Edinburgh like anytime, which is another really cool city, like different for sure. But beautiful. Like it's easy to get down to London. I'm excited to pop down there in a couple weeks. I have a little trip planned and up to the Highlands. So I think that's another big advantage of being in Glasgow is, you have a lot of other places in Scotland and the UK accessible to you.
For sure. It's perfectly situated. I think it's right in the heart of everything that you want to do. Not too far, not too close, to anything and everything. And I don't know, just for a final thought on especially the people, like Jessica was saying, I think that Glasgow's got to have the most international friendly locals of any place that I've ever been. It is such a, like Jessica was saying, you get lost and somebody's going to help you. You go to the bank and the person at the bank is the sweetest person in the world for no reason other than the fact that they want to help. And it can be daunting to go abroad, but it's the locals, it's the people of Glasgow that make it as amazing as it is. So Jessica.
I want to kind of build on to what Aiden was talking about with like the traveling, and if you're coming here and you don't know anyone, like there's the international support. And sometimes if you watch in like the emails, they actually offer like different field trips, like different trips places. So like I remember our first year we went up to the Highlands and went and saw like the Glenfin where the train was at for like Harry Potter. So it was a very like Harry Potter themed trip. It was in January, so it was very rainy. We were very soaked by the time we got done, but it was very memorable, and it was an opportunity to meet other international students who were maybe just didn't know anyone, and we were able to get to have things to go do in the future. So that was really, really helpful to have.
Excellent. So if you like kind of the picture that we've painted of Glasgow, or if you know about Glasgow, if you know about some of the programs that you're interested in, how do you get here? How do you study here? What do you need to do to apply? Maral, do you, as somebody who's going to work more on the prospective student side of things, do you have any tips, any advice, any thoughts on the application process?
I think the main difference between the UK and the US is the UK is very open about what they're looking for a student in order to be eligible to be considered for a program. So we will state directly, this is the GPA you need, this is the background you need, you might need work experience, you may need 2 references instead of 1. I mean, they're very, very specific about what it is we're looking for. And you will see the entry requirements on each degree page when you're looking at what program it is that you want to apply to. It'll list everything that is required for that program. And I will stress that every program may have different requirements. So definitely have a look before you make an application. The process is very straightforward. You go onto our website, you find the program you want to apply to, and there'll be an Apply Now button. You click on that button and you start the process. So certain things that they're looking for is going to be your transcripts. If you're still at university, so if you haven't finished your bachelor's degree, they will need to see this transcript up to date at that point. And if you've commenced and you finished your bachelor's degree, they would need to see the final transcript as well as your degree certificate. They may have a personal statement that depends on the program. There will be a reference that is required. If you have one, you can upload it. If you don't have one, then you can actually submit a name and an email address of who you would like to submit the reference on your behalf, and the university will get in contact with them. You don't have to worry about an English language requirement if you're applying and studied in the US. So it's a US speaking country, English speaking country. So they're fine with that. And I think that's about it. Am I missing anything? No. And if you don't have all those documents when you first make your application, it's fine. You can start your application. You have about 42 days from the point of which you start it to complete it. You'll get reminders sent from us saying you still need to submit this, or your application's on hold, or whatever it may be. Once you actually submit everything, you then have access to your student portal, and you can track everything that's happening. And typically for a postgraduate application, it would take about 28 days, maybe more, for a decision to be made on the application, and you'll see it directly in your portal. So you need to just constantly keep checking your portal. You will get notifications, but it's always good to keep checking your portal. But I guess the main difference that I would stress is that we are very specific about what we're looking for, and we list it. So there's no surprises when you go to make your application. I hope that was enough information
Thank
for
you, Meryl.
applicants.
Aiden.
Yeah, one thing, like, just from my pretty recent experience, was like to flag, like, the timelines can be like quite different from like applying to masters in the US. Like, I kind of decided that I was gonna apply quite late in the process, in the summer already, and by that point, most programs in the US would be closed, but that wasn't the case for the programs here and some of the other programs in the UK. And obviously it like varies like program to program. So again, just like make sure you're like checking in on those things. But yeah, one thing to be aware of that is that those timelines can be different.
I think for most international students, they have until July, and even sometimes after that. But what you need to remember with an international student is that you need to allow yourself enough time to secure your visa, your student visa, to study at Glasgow, which starts in September. So if you leave it very late, I think that's why there's a July deadline. If you leave it very late, it can delay your start time. So just make sure you get it in. I would say a safe bet would be before the summer months.
I can't echo get it in as soon as possible because of visa reasons enough. When I came over, it was 2021. It was the first year that we're kind of getting back to normal. And my wife, because she's much more capable on top of things, managed to get her application in sooner than I did, and sent her visa away, or sent her passport away to get her visa. I was late and happened to be physically on top of a pile, and I got my visa first. And you never know what's going to happen with the visa process. So the sooner that you get your application in, so the sooner you can get that visa process going, the safer bet the safer the bet is going to be, because you don't want to leave that too late and kind of run into some rough waters with that. Maral, can I ask if I'm looking for scholarships, do you have any information about that with the application process?
Yeah, there's a number of scholarships that Glasgow offers, and I will actually state here that I've worked at a number of UK universities, and I'm very surprised with the amount of scholarships that Glasgow offers. It's by far more than I've seen at other institutions. So take advantage of it. Again, on each degree page, it'll list all the scholarships that a student is eligible to apply for that program, or based on whatever country you're coming from. The difference with scholarships is that it is a separate application. So you do need to apply for the scholarship separately, which is another reason you should get your application to the university in early, because these scholarships will require you to have an offer to study at the university before you can be considered for the scholarship. And if I could just talk a little bit about what the offer looks like, because that will differ from the US. So typically when a student applies to the UK in general, and they have not completed their degree yet, so you're still in your bachelor's degree, you're probably in your final year, you're going to graduate in May. What happens is that when you apply, you'll get, if you're accepted, you'll get what's called a conditional offer. Condition is that you complete your bachelor's degree, and it might even have the specific GPA on there, or they'll ask for certain things that they need. The only guarantee you have of actually attending is meeting those conditions. So once you meet those conditions, that's you have your final transcripts, you met the GPA requirement, you submit that through your portal, your offer then becomes unconditional. You accept that offer should you choose to go to Glasgow, and then you start the visa process. The other side of that is if you have completed your bachelor's degree and you're making an application, let's say maybe you took a gap year, or you were working, or you're going back to school, more or less then your your offer would probably be unconditional because we have everything we need to make that decision. There's nothing that they're waiting on, unless there is something that they're waiting on. So bear that in mind. And certain programs, I don't believe there's any programs within Arts and Humanities that require an interview. I could be wrong on that. I don't know if Aiden and Jessica or Jack, anymore, but some programs may require an interview or a portfolio or whatever it may be. But again, we're very straightforward in what we're looking for, and it will be listed on the degree page.
Yeah, I definitely did an interview for this position. Aiden, Jessica, I don't know if a couple knows. So it doesn't sound like there will be interviews, but that's just our experience. If there is a specific program with specific requirements, like Maral said, check out the degree requirements or the application requirements for more information. I will say, if you have questions about, like, hey, this program sounds interesting, what is it about, or what courses am I going to study as part of this? All those courses that are listed or that are involved in that degree will be listed on the degree page, and you can find the information about them on the course catalog online. You can also reach out to the academic contact that should be listed on the degree page if you have additional questions, whether it's about, like, you have a certain qualification that you're not sure if it meets the requirements, or you have more background in this specific area. They can give you kind of that expert knowledge on that topic. So definitely reach out to the resources, to the academics, because they are always happy to help and the best people to talk to for that expert information. Let's see. Aiden, Jessica, any final thoughts on what it was like to apply, maybe scholarships? Did either of you get scholarships for your degrees? No?
I was able to apply to that, and that was definitely super helpful. So yeah, I think definitely encouraged to, find as much funding as is available to you, and go for it.
Cool. So I suppose, if we've applied and assuming we get accepted, we've got that unconditional offer and we've hit, yes, I would like to come to Glasgow. Sometime August, September, your boots on the ground, you're here in Glasgow, and you show up to class. What will you be expecting when you get here? The education system, for one, is going to be nothing like you've done previously in the States. Most likely, the Scottish education system, the grading scale, is going to be unique. Jessica, can you tell me, a bit? Do you remember your experience when you first got here of learning the new grading scale, and or just the expectations of being in a Scottish institution?
Yep. So I'll build on the grading scale first. I think it took some time because there is it's 22 different levels. And A has A1 through A5, and then B1 to B3, and then C1 to C3, and then D1 to D3, which would be the pass marks. Each program has its own, so sometimes they usually want a D1, at least for postgraduate taught, D1 or above, I should say. So that did take some used to. I remember coming in and they're always saying a B is equivalent maybe to an A in the US. So I did find that sometimes a bit daunting. But then one of the things that I did find that was really nice was I didn't have to pay for books. So whereas during both of my undergrads, I had to spend a lot of money on books in the US institutions, whereas here I was given a reading list from all my course conveners, and then it was accessible through the library. So I didn't have to pay really anything for books. So I would say that has been one of the advantages. Also, just the academic side of it, and this is one of the things that I've learned in going on and working within the University for Student Learning Development as a GTA. The writing style is very critical writing style. In the US, sometimes can be very descriptive writing style. So even if you find that you might be struggling with some of the academic study skills and the writing skills, Whereas I came in 2014, student learning development wasn't as progressed as it is now. We actually have our own branch specific for international students. So you can go to essay writing classes, you can also go to like dissertation classes, and then you can also make one-to-one appointments with effective learning advisors or GTA, and you can actually have someone read your work. So if you have an essay that you just don't know and you want like, well, is this feedback for like the argument? There is support there for you as an international student to kind of see if you're meeting the criteria of the marking system.
I would absolutely recommend, as Jessica's saying, reaching out to student learning development, not even on the point of being an international student, but on the fact that you're going to be a new postgraduate student. This is a level that you've not studied at previously, potentially. So when you get here, reach out to all of those resources, whether it's student learning and development or it's the academics, your GTAs, the graduate teaching assistants. Talk to anybody you can pin down and have that conversation of, okay, what level of writing am I currently at? What is expected of me? What do I need to do to succeed in this degree? Because the earlier that you do that, the more successful you are going to be ultimately. Aiden, I want to ask you about kind of induction. You're new, you're a couple months into your degree at this point. What was induction the first couple weeks as an international student like, generally as a student for the College of Arts and Humanities, but also more specific for theater?
Yeah, for sure. It was, crazy and chaotic as you might expect moving to a new country would be. But yeah, it was good. So as far as my program, and typically like I think this is true of all programs, but like the week kind of before classes start is like induction week and freshers week and welcome week, or as all of the different things that call it here. And for my course specifically, it was kind of just one afternoon into evening induction that we had where we were the whole theater studies department, and then we broke off into our own like, because there's like 3 degrees within the theater studies department. So had our main meeting and then our smaller meetings, and then like a big reception at the end. And it was just you can think of it as like a mini orientation of just a way to introduce the program and some of the faculty and your convener. That's one thing that's different. Like the concept of convener, at least, is not something I encountered in the American context. But
do you want to explain what a convener is for us, or should
Yeah, lots of different things have conveners. Sometimes your degree program will have a convener, kind of just meaning like the department chair, and then like your specific like courses might have a convener, which is sometimes just like the professor, or oftentimes there'll be courses that I'm in, for example, a Scottish theater course right now, and it's kind of team taught by a bunch of people across the department. So we have like one course convener who is with us a few weeks out of the semester, and she is kind of like the one who's responsible for like taking care of the assessments, and like we can kind of go to her throughout the whole semester. But then there are also like other professors, lecturers, like rotating in the rest of the time. So you might have conveners then, and then you also might have them like for your program, which just kind of means like they're the person who's in charge of like almost being like an advisor for you in that context of like your degree, and making sure you're hitting all of the requirements and stuff. Yeah, so you met our conveners at induction as well. I don't know, did I do a good job describing that?
It's exactly how like they are the person in charge is the way that I would put it, of just, if you've got a question, you find the nearest convener, whether they are in charge of a specific course or a specific program. They are somebody that you can go to. let me see. I know that we've got a couple questions here. There's a question on paying for tuition by working for the university. I do not have any specific knowledge of that. Does anybody have firsthand knowledge of
I mean, I can
paying?
just chat to like the experience of finding housing and
Yeah,
working.
if you've got a
Yeah, so I ended up applying, and I was there is the chance to like, there's plenty of different things on the internet where you can try and find roommates or flatmates and such. There's also the opportunity to apply to the university for housing, and there's a deadline that if you apply before X date for housing, then you're like guaranteed housing as an international student. I personally, with my timeline, missed that deadline, just because I hadn't fully like decided I was coming or not yet. But then I was still able to apply. Still ended up getting housing through the university, which has been very nice. Actually, like the first hall that I was at was lovely, but it wasn't like where like physically in the city I wanted to be. So I had been in touch with the housing folks, and then like about a week and a half into my time here, they were able to move me to a different hall, which is like the part of the city that I had wanted to be living in. So that was great. They were super helpful with that. It's pretty, yeah, I think the website there like will kind of give you a sense of like what the university accommodation feels like. Just, I mean, for example, like the place I'm in, the flat I'm in now is, there's 6 of us, and we each have our own bedroom and bathroom, and then we kind of have like a little hallway that's shared, and then a kitchen area with a couple couches and fridges and all that good stuff. So our like little shared common area. So yeah, it's been very nice. Yeah, it's a bit of a process to like go through and apply, but it's pretty clear as long as you're following through those requirements and deadlines and such. And then I have been on the hunt for a part-time job. There's not really like a concept of like work study the same way as you might have encountered in the US, where it would be like directly towards your tuition, but it's obviously possible, and many post-grad students do get a part-time job while they're here. I'm working on it. I will say that's been like one like small adjustment. I found that just my experience, but the like application and hiring and interview process here, as opposed to like what I'd experienced at home in the US, was much more elongated. Just like the amount of time it takes everything to go through. Like I'm just like hearing back and interviewing for positions I applied to like right when I got here, like a month ago. So that's something to be aware of. I think like obviously maybe there's exceptions and what have you, but there's lots of opportunities to work around in the area. Plenty of students work at like several of my flatmates work at a bar and a coffee shop that are right around the corner, and there's on-campus jobs as well. So it's a hunt to find things, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing for an international student is to get a job. And I sound like an old man telling students who I talk to go get a job. It's unbelievably helpful to go work at a coffee shop with a 19-year-old Glaswegian kid, and they will teach you everything that you need to know about Scotland and about Glasgow. You will be cultured in a week and a half of working with a local student or a local just non-student. So if you are interested in getting a job, go out, go apply, even if it does take some time, even if it's not necessarily productive to your career aspirations. I worked at Starbucks, now I work at the university. Having that kind of external network of local individuals is really, really helpful in my experience, and hopefully should allow you to pay some of your bills indirectly. There's a question as well about work placements. I believe these would be program specific, so you might want to look up the course catalog for specific programs that you might be interested in doing to see if there's a placement course? Jessica, do you have any thoughts?
So that's usually reserved for postgraduate research students. So that's PhD candidates. So like to work within your own subject. So like, for example, I didn't work during my postgrad taught degree, but then I became a graduate teaching assistant in the history department. And then I also became a graduate teaching assistant in student learning development. So there's not like work placement and the same idea that we think about in the US that just doesn't quite exist here. And it's really reserved for PhD students. So that would be something if you decided to stay on, then maybe you could definitely look at that. And usually 99% of the time you're given a position. That way you can build on your career development within your subject.
I'm just gonna, sorry, Aiden. I'm just going to chime in and just let international students know that when you're actually in the UK on a student visa, there is a restriction. So you can actually only work a maximum of 20 hours a week during term time as one of the restrictions on your visa. Out of term time, you can work 40 hours, and a postgraduate taught degree is a year. So it's September to September. You're in class from September to May, and then from May to the following September, you're working on your dissertation. So I believe from May to the following September, that would be classified as out of term. So you can actually work 40 hours a week, depending on your schedule and whether you can fit it in. But there's plenty of job opportunities. As Jack said, just even working at a local coffee shop. I mean, anything helps to get some extra money in to go to your accommodation, your tuition, or your cost of living. And the experience of working in a different country. It's very valuable.
I was just going to jump in on the work placement point. This is obviously something that varies from department to department, but at least in the theater studies context, there is like a course that is like focused on, it's like a work placement course, and the work placement is, working with like some kind of theater organization or theater related thing. Like someone that I know is going to be working in like the university archive on theater materials, and then people will intern with like different dance and theater companies. So like there is, varying different department depending on what you want to do. That kind of work placement is available, at least for the theater studies.
Excellent. Thank you, Aiden. And thank you all for your inputs there. I want to move now. We've got 20 minutes or so. Just before we really hit the wrap up point, what happens if we run into trouble? Anybody who's studied abroad, when I did a study abroad, they showed us a graph of like time versus happiness level, where your mental health will tank around Christmas and then rebound as you, or around Thanksgiving, as you get more used to the place that you're in. What kind of support services are there on campus or around campus that anybody has interacted with? Aiden, Jessica, Maral, do you guys have any experience interacting with support services firsthand?
I mean, I could speak about the support that you would receive before you actually arrive. So this is when you're making your application, you will have a U.S. country rep dedicated to your state, so where you're based. So as I said in the beginning when I introduced myself, there's 4 of us. So we have my colleague Ashley in California, my colleague Peter in New York, myself in the Midwest, and we have a colleague named Rosie, who's actually from the Isle of Skye, and she covers the South and South Central. So depending on where you're located, you will have an individual contact, and our names, email addresses are all listed on the website. So if you have any questions before, during, after you've applied, you can send us a message. And a lot of times if you're having difficulty, let's say I have a question in regards to admissions, you've contacted admissions. Admissions is very busy, as you can imagine, especially in certain points of the year, that it might take some time to get a decision or an answer back to you. If you message us, we can often get that answer to you quicker. So I would encourage you to reach out to your in-country rep. We're in country for a reason, and that's to support you. We're on the same timeline, and usually same time zones, so it actually helps when you're making your application. And then even after you arrive, if you still have questions, you want to reach out to us, you're more than welcome to, but there's always a number of people to support you on campus, and you won't be lost for help, that's for sure. And not just the academic staff, but even just the students and the people of Glasgow. I mean, it was voted one of the friendliest cities in the world. You don't usually lose that title once you get it. People remain friendly. So you will have tremendous amount of support, but I'll let our fellow students to talk about the support they got when they arrived.
Yeah. So for me, like coming with a spouse who was also a PGT student, like, and he had never been to Scotland. Like I had been here when I graduated high school many years ago. So I knew that I always wanted to come to Scotland. So I told him that this is where I wanted to do my postgrad degree. But neither one of us had actually been to Glasgow to see the university. So what we decided, one of the reasons why we chose Glasgow is because we had that international student support, like the student rep that Maral has just mentioned, but also the university picked us up from the airport. They brought us to campus because you have to do like your visa check-in. So that was really, really nice, especially because we moved during the weekend of the Scottish referendum. And that means that there was no hotels at all. We had to go stay in East Kilbride, which again, never coming to Glasgow before. We were like, okay. But once we got here and we explained, and we went across and did our student card, and then we did our visa check-in, and we were like, look, we have to stay in East Kilbride. How do we get there? And the representatives were so helpful. They gave us taxi numbers that were reasonable cost. So now we've got Uber that's more popular, but again, it was one of those things of culture shock of just getting here, not being really adapted and having our cell phones converted yet, because we still needed to get international numbers. But then I think another little bit of support, like you were talking, Jack, about mental health and well-being, there is the counseling service as well, which offers free services. And I've done that before, and it's very, very helpful. And I would say though, and I think maybe Jack and Aiden might agree that, I don't know how they may or may not agree, but I used to dread the winters here, but now I actually enjoy it. I'm trying to get my mother-in-law to visit because I'm like, it's really nice. Come visit us in the wintertime. But it is dark, but you do kind of grasp, and you will adjust to it, I promise, especially if you maybe come from a very warm place in the States. You do adjust to the weather and the winter. And then I think one of their support, like I said, the international student support, they have the tours that they can take you on, but also if you decided that you wanted to stay, which is something that I've done, you can always talk to them about going on to the next visa, or if you're going to apply for a PhD program, what are the visa requirements that you need to do that? And that can be really, helpful and less anxiety inducing when you're starting to think about more immigration paperwork.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. I don't know if I agree with you about loving the winters. I have definitely acclimatized. Like I said, I am from Florida, so it's not this weather, but you definitely have to get used to taking some vitamin D tablets, or eat an orange every once in a while or whatever. Aiden, any experience? Otherwise, I will go into my spiel about student support. Any cool? I will. So any student that crosses the threshold, I am in the advising and well-being team. So student support is pretty much the thing that says on the tin for my role as a PGT student. If you have well-being concerns, any point, you can find myself or find another member of my team to have a conversation about, hey, what's going on? What kind of support is available? Jessica mentioned counseling. The counseling services have an infinite, not quite infinite, number of resources for mental health and well-being support. There's disability services, which will move heaven and earth to get some provisions in place for you. They cover a number of mental health conditions as well as other disabilities. So if you think that, or if you've previously had support or provisions in place, either in high school or at college or university previously, get in touch with Disability, because they will be your person in the corner to back you no matter what, and give you any number of provisions. But if you have questions about it, go find me when you get here. We are very helpful, I would like to think, and can have these conversations a little bit more in detail with you when you get here. So that's my spiel on on student well-being for the most part. As we, I suppose, get nearer and nearer to the end, I want to ask kind of a different sort of question of, does anybody want to share any kind of challenges that you've faced coming here, or Maral, obviously, you now live in Chicago, so when you lived in the UK, or challenges that students experience when they move over here, just to give some advice for students who are thinking about moving over but are concerned about, oh, I don't know what it's going to be like being away from family, or I've got to get a doctor. Jessica, I don't know how to go get a SIM card for my phone. I'm still on my parents' phone plan or whatever. Any kind of advice on the challenges that you've faced getting over here?
I can start with that one. I mean, I think I'll talk first about the opportunities that exist in Europe that don't necessarily, or are available in the US, but more difficult to get. So first and foremost, all the museums are free in all of the UK, which is huge. And you don't realize how much you're going to miss that until you don't have it. So when you're walking around the city and you have some free time, there's a number of museums located around campus that you just walk into and view the exhibitions or what's going on. Sometimes there's a fee for like specific works or events that they're holding, but more or less you walk into any museum. The bus system, the transportation system, it is so much, as we mentioned earlier, it's so much more available. So you can just hop on a bus and get to some place. You can hop on a train. And also, as a student, you will have student discounts. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I did hear that students pay like £2 for a bus, and that's to get up to Edinburgh. I could be wrong about that, but it's definitely much cheaper than those that do not have a student ID. I'll say that. Some challenges, I think, first and foremost, is we all speak English, but the accent can be different. So you might think that it's going to be difficult to understand a Glaswegian accent, but I could assure you that it's not. It's not. Different parts of the country have different accents, just like the US. So I'm from Chicago, so I probably have a very thick American accent, but if I went to the South, I can sometimes find it difficult to understand them. So it's the same kind of concept, but in Glasgow, it's very easy to, and correct me if I'm wrong on my panelists, but it's very easy to understand the Scottish accent and dialect. You're going to get spoiled in terms of the grocery stores. Personally, that's one thing I miss, is the convenience of quick food, but quick and healthy food. That's the main difference. Like in the US, you can get quick food, but it's usually fried and not healthy. Whereas in the UK, you can go into any supermarket and there's usually a £5 meal deal where you get a sandwich, a bag of chips, crisps, potato chips. I don't know what we're calling it now.
I don't know where you're going for a £5 meal deal there, Maral. I think you're getting ripped
Tesco or
off.
Sainsbury's.
Tesco.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe
Yep.
I'm getting ripped off. But there's just so much convenience, I think, and everything is walkable as well. So you do a lot more walking in Europe than you do in the States. So if you need to get milk, there's always a corner shop right next to where you live, where you just walk down 2 minutes, get your milk, and come back. Whereas in the US, you forget milk, you have to get in your car, drive to the grocery store. So it's just a lot more compact, and it's a lot more accessible and easy. And I can understand it's daunting, but what I will say is you're not the only one coming over from an international country. So it's not just the US. We accept students from all over the world. So we have 140 different countries represented on campus. And these students, some of them are leaving their home country for the first time ever. So it's an adjustment period, but we have the support in place to help you make that adjustment. But by the time you finish, and I'll tell you that 1 year is going to go by super quick, you're going to be considering staying for a PhD, just as Jessica did, because 1 year is not enough. you're going to need more time. So yeah, I think you'll adjust absolutely fine.
On real quick, an important point, I suppose, on wanting to stay. There is a graduate visa, which will permit you to stay for 2 years after the completion of your degree. It's a relatively new visa, as far as I'm aware, that the UK has instituted. It's what I stayed on. And you can work full time on that graduate visa. You do have to apply. It's a whole new visa process. But if you do enjoy Glasgow, if you enjoy Scotland, if you enjoy the UK, you don't need to go roll immediately into a PhD just to stay. You can apply for a new visa and stay for 2 years and do whatever you want.
And also just say that, like, obviously everyone's visa situation could be different, but I know, like, most of the time, like the visa that I'm on for my program extends like several months after graduation date. So it's not like you have to like pack up the day your course is done. Like there is, like I'll finish in September and could stay until January in my case. So yeah, and then like Jack said, there's plenty of other options if you want to stick around. We'll see where I am at in 8 months.
Aiden, Jessica, any challenges that you guys face that you, or anything that any surprises, any kind of closing thoughts that you want to share before we wrap up here?
I don't know necessarily, like, there has been challenges, and I think that was just adjusting sometimes to the very academic writing style, but I eventually overcame that. But like support, like, because I'm also an entrepreneur, so like one of the reasons why I was able to stay here was because I got onto the startup visa and I was one of the last candidates to get that. But now that I've gone 10 years, I've just passed my life in the UK test. And so there's different routes that you can do that. Like if you stay for the graduate route, then you can maybe find a job that will sponsor, and after 5 years, you can maybe take the test as well. But support, like let's say like you're an arts and humanities student, but you want to start a business, because Americans, we're very entrepreneur, but you don't take classes in the business school. During the summertime, there is like summer programs that's available in Student Enterprise, and it gives you all how like anything from starting your business to finances and such. So you could always think about that, because I've got several colleagues who have done like, editing, to nonprofits, to myself who's done digital marketing business, to ed tech. So if that's something you're thinking about and you want those skill sets, that is available to you as well. And then you can, if you decide you want to go back to the States, you have those entrepreneur skill sets on how to run a business kind of there for you at your access. That's for free. That's part of studying here at Glasgow. So.
And you can tell an American employer that you've got that international experience and knock their socks off. Aiden, any thought?
Yeah, I think like probably just the biggest challenge, like moving somewhere where I like knew literally 0 people. And that's hard no matter where you go. But I think there are lots of opportunities like on campus for sure. Honestly, like so far I found like some small communities like just like around the city. Like I just went actually for the first, I'd been playing there's a Kelvin Grove Park is like right by the university. Beautiful. And I walk through it back and forth every day to get to campus. And there's like tennis courts there that you can play for free during the day, or like there's tennis courts. It's great. And I went to like a social tennis event that like the park was putting on last night, and it was fun. And so I think it's just important to like, and I'm still actively encouraging and getting myself to do this, but to try and get out there and not just be in my own little bubble, but try and stretch out. But yeah, that's probably been the biggest ongoing challenge, I would say, but making headways.
Absolutely. Move into a new country, especially alone, is has its challenges, can be scary. The thing that got me through it was immediately starting a WhatsApp group chat, just wrangling the kids in my program and saying, we're all putting our phone numbers in a group chat and we're going to have this conversation so that we have the support of, most of us aren't even from Glasgow. A lot of us are international. We have nobody but ourselves. Let's get this done. And then you just kind of branch out from there. and you have to take that initiative to get yourself out the door, to go join a tennis social, or go get a job or something like that, to make those connections. But they're definitely out there. The city is full of them, and I think the university is full of them as well. So I think that will sort of take us up to time, unless any of my panelists have anything else they want to share or chime in on. Otherwise, I think we might start to wrap this up. All right, nobody chomping at the bit. Thank you guys very much for joining us for this Q&A. I know this will be posted on YouTube soon. Hopefully we get to see you and your applications in, and hopefully we get to see you for this upcoming academic term. Thank you guys very much.